Hello everybody, you're tuned in to Cragcore. Thank you once again for tuning in. You could probably be doing something a little bit more important right now than listening to me, so I appreciate you choosing, with your free will, to listen to me instead. Thank you very, very much. Now, as we get into it, I just thought I would, I suppose, give a bit of an intro to this as to why I'm going to be talking about what I'm going to be talking about here and how this all transpired. So today I received an email from the government, and the email basically said that because I had supported a petition in the past, the petition was for people that choose not to get the stick in the arm, that there shouldn't be any restrictions placed upon those people. So therefore, maybe I'll be interested in this piece of information that they've just posted on the Gov website. Now, I decided to go and look at this information because it was about the new Plan B, which is what they're calling it, the Plan B for autumn and winter. There's many facets to this, so get ready for a decent long haul video. I don't know if it's going to be too long, actually, this video, but it is quite a juicy one. Something for you all to get your teeth into. So basically, this Plan B is about bringing in the restrictive, and yes, very restrictive, passport system, to where you have to show your status of the stick in the arm in order to gain access to certain things in society. So I hope I've made that very clear. Again, we have to say this very surreptitiously, otherwise videos will be taken down and the channel will be blocked again. So I decided to go and look at this because there is a document that has been uploaded to the Gov website, an official document written by the government that basically lays out their plans towards how they want to roll out this Plan B. Now, excuse me, this was never Plan B, was it? I mean, in my opinion, Plan B, no, they're calling it Plan B, but it's just the plan that they are deciding to bring in a little bit later than perhaps they would have liked to, due to public pushback. But, you know, as time moves on, more and more people are falling for this and going along with it, because how long can people hold out, before they're ground down to a fine powder? Because that's where we're getting now. People are just jumping on the bandwagon now to try and get this over and done with. The plan's working for some people. So this Plan B, it's just basically, what they wanted to do anyway. Because they've already told you they were going to do this, and then they went back on it and said, no, we're not. And now they've said, yes, if, they keep using the word, if we bring this into place, but it's a load of bollocks, isn't it? They're saying if they bring it into place based on, an upsurge in strain on the NHS. So this article, as I said, it maps out how they're going to tackle this. So I'm going to just give you a few bullet points from what I can remember. I did read it about 6 hours ago, so memory being as it is nowadays in my old age, I'll try and remember to the best of my abilities the details, the fine and juicy details of this document. Now, I urge every single person to go and look at this document, and I will put the link to this document in the section below, in the, not the comments section, in the description box below. That's right. Slowly getting used to this YouTube vibe. I'm even pointing down there where the description box is now. Anyway, so I will put the link down there in the description box, so you can just click on the thing or copy and paste it to your web browser if it doesn't allow you to click on it, and you can go and check this document out for yourself. I urge everybody to read it, because it's better to know what's coming. I know they're saying that they might not have to bring it in, but they're laying the foundations, man. I mean, this is ultimately, this is what's been planned for a long, long time. They're already doing it in Australia, you know, and that's, funnily enough, there are links to Australia. Within this document, it does say that the 11th of October is the deadline for people to basically send them their views and opinions on this, you know, this Plan B rollout. And funnily enough, the same date, October the 11th, is when the Australians are planning to take people's freedoms away. I mean, make of that whatever you will. And I mean, if you add up 11 and 10, which is the 11th of October, 11 and 10 make 21. And what year are we in? Well, we're in the year 21, aren't we? 2021. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be weird and like far-reachingly esoteric here, trying to make something out of nothing. It may seem that way, but there always seems to be numbers that start to, you know, numerology surrounding these things. There is always, I mean, for instance, look at the, you know, the end of the end of the war. It was 11 minutes past 11 on November the 11th. I mean, that's 11, 11, 11, 11. I mean, just as another piece of information, Freemasonry, the modern age of Freemasonry, the modern Freemasons lodge was created in the year 1717. You know, there are so many. For instance, with the 9/11 stuff, it was, you know, 11 years after George Bush Sr. announced the New World Order. 11 years after that, you know, it happened and what have you, and then I think that was what it was. But there was an 11-year pattern with all the 9/11 stuff, and I think that the more, you know, the quicker we kind of accept that. We might think that numerology is a load of shite. You know, I certainly don't, but obviously because I'm mentioning it. But it's a point to go and look at, and perhaps go and look into and research with regards to different world-defining events, because I'm sure you will find numerology embedded in quite a few of them. Because, like I was just about to say, you know, a lot of people like us, you know, the grassroots individual walking around the street, you know, working the 9 to 5. A lot of people don't care about numerology. They perhaps don't think it has any significance at all. But if you think the universe is based on sacred geometry, which is ultimately mathematics, well then numbers, being the universal language of the universe, do have a, I don't know, they do have something to do with everything. So when you start to see, and I mean, all that's by the way, you know, it doesn't matter. I mean, let's face it, I would recommend you go and look into it, but it doesn't matter whether we believe it, does it? It's a bit like this whole satanic ritual stuff. It doesn't matter if you believe in it. The point is these people do, and you can tell that by the very fact that there is numerology, or there seems to be numerology, embedded deep within most of the things that they do. Now, I remember seeing some different numerological coincidences, or would you like to say coincidences, last year. And throughout this year with different things. I can't remember off the top of my head now, but I remember at the time I was thinking, oh yeah, yeah, there's a little numerical pattern there. You know, and they I suppose they just expect people not to give a shit, or to perhaps look at it and think, oh, well, it's nothing. But as long as it means something to them, like I said, you know, they believe in it, that's why they do it, so it must mean something to them, which means in some regards it gives them power. Because I suppose belief is power. You know, if you've got somebody stood in front of you that completely believes what they're saying, it could be a load of bollocks, but if they completely believe it, then you're more likely to believe it as well, aren't they? It's a bit like the whole fake it till you make it attitude. But anyway, you know, digressing again. So, you know, they believe in it. So off on a bit of a tangent there with the numerology stuff, but there is, a strong coincidence with this particular thing with regarding, them wanting to have people's opinions brought forward before this date, especially when it's the same date that the Australians are doing their thing. So, I mean, it is bad in Australia, isn't it, at the minute? I mean, I just want to, at this moment, I would like to give my sincere prayers to everybody in Australia at the minute, whether or not you are for or against the global agenda, the narrative that is being pumped out. Regardless of your personal stance on all of the stuff that's going on in the world right now, I truly have sympathy for every single person in that part of the world, because it is bad there, man. Like, it's becoming, I mean, well, it's already a fascist state, but it's getting so bad, and my heart goes out to you. It really does. On the other hand, though, there is a positive to be seen in all of that, because the extremities of what are happening in Australia right now are showing us all the intent behind, I suppose, what is, coming for the rest of the world. And at the very least, even if it doesn't reach us, which I'm sure it will do, but even, at the very least, even if it doesn't reach us, we've been able to have a glimpse of what overbearing totalitarianism, an oligarchic rule, can, that effect can have on the planet. So yeah, I mean, such a tragedy that's happening over there. So yeah, my heart goes out to you. So, make of that what you will. Take my love and positivity there. And let's move on. So this document, they say that they want to get people's opinions in by this specific date. It's the 11th of October 2021. But it does say, next to that statement, that if you try and get it in sooner, just in case they have to implement this as an emergency. So they are kind of giving themselves lots of little loopholes that they can, dance around and jump through. So, as and when they need it. So, I mean, like I said, in this document, there is an awful lot of ifs and buts and maybes. So, I mean, it's not necessarily written in stone. They aren't coming out and saying that this is what's going to happen. But, I mean, if you've been watching the show since the start, you should know by now that the newspapers are becoming predictive text rather than reporting on past events. And, they're kind of telling you what could happen, and then it happens. So it's kind of pre-programming. So that seems to be the way that information is turning into now. All the media seems to be predictively programming people as to what might happen, which then does end up transpiring, as opposed to, predominantly reporting on the news of yesterday, which is very, very strange. I mean, that point was made by a guy on YouTube called Hugo Talks. I mean, I watched that video and I thought, well, yeah, that's very, 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 very true. And it's, once you've noticed it, you can see it, and you say, well, yeah, why is that? Well, I mean, when you see documents like this one, which I will get to, you can kind of understand why. Because ultimately, if you can, what you need to do as a overbearing government body, what you need to do is try and establish what it is you want to do before you do it. So people are, I suppose, to some degree already used to the idea, which means when it happens, they're already feeling perplexed about it. They've already had I can't believe not again. And then it's just that feeling of giving up once again. So there's less pushback from society. Whereas if you just come straight out and you say, by the way, this is what we're doing and it's happening today, people will fucking fill the streets and riot, because you get that shock, that instant shock, that instant emotional reaction from people. But if it's not going to happen for 2 weeks, or if it's not going to happen for a week or 3 weeks, whatever, pretty much how they made the masks mandatory in the supermarkets, they said, in 2 weeks. So that gave people time to get used to it, you see. So at that point, when it happens, well, you know, that's the mentality. So there's no pushback, and that's how they do it. If people don't want to do something, it's usually, you know, the people power mentality comes a lot of the time. It does come down to that knee-jerk reaction, that emotional response. So if they can quell that emotional response by giving you a couple of weeks to get used to it, well, then by the time it happens, the majority of people anyway, are used to the idea. So therefore, when it happens, it just happens, you know, without any resistance. So that's, in my opinion, you know, what's going on right now, especially with this document. Now let's get into it. It does say that it's predominantly aimed at the hospitality sector and, for instance, things like nightclubs and stuff. So entertainment and hospitality, these things. It does say that they hope they don't have to implement it in other areas, but they can't rule out that they're not going to, dependent on the severity of any outbreaks or any kind of strain that may get put on the National Health Service. So ultimately, again, they're giving themselves another, you know, another get-out clause there, just in case they want to implement it at places like, oh, I don't know, supermarkets. I did say this in the fuel crisis video, that that's the road we're headed down, man. If you don't think that's the case, then okay, that's fair enough, good for you. But eventually you will probably realise that and it'll be too late. But, you know, if you've had the double stick, then ultimately, you know, it won't affect you. So what does it matter, eh? Who cares, right? You know, only when things really start to affect you do you really start to give a shit. And I suppose at that point you'll realise that everybody else has been suffering for some time. So, but we'll forgive you. We'll forgive you, you know. Of course we will. You know, better late than never to the party. But yeah, it does say that people who work in these areas, for instance, if you are a person who works at a nightclub or a bar, or if you are the host of an event, say for instance, you know, at a big place like the NEC, you know, or a festival or a gig, say for instance, or a football match. If you're an employee in any of these sectors, it says we will expect you to be double stuck in order to retain your employment. Now, if you remember, I mean, yeah, did you gasp at that point and say, no way? Well, I urge you to go and read the document because it's there in black and white. And I screenshotted it and I can quite easily, you know, put together a little slideshow because, you know, if you can't be bothered to click the link in the description box below. I remember, you know, last year people were saying that this was headed to the no thing, no job. And people were going, nah, they wouldn't do that. Of course they wouldn't. You know, shut up, go away and be quiet. You're just a conspiracy theorist. Nobody wants to listen to you. But you see, now it's happened. Now they've put it in a document and now they've released it and they've said that we expect and it's going to be a legal requirement. It says this, it's going to be a legal requirement for people that work in these sectors to have had the double stick. And if you can't, due to exemptions, it does say there will be exemptions, but in order to be exempt, you need to have a severe medical condition that renders you unable. Say, for instance, like if you have severe allergic reactions to what's in the you know, the substance that they're putting in you, or if you have learning disabilities or other such like things. Now, in order to gain this exemption, you need to attain a physician. Say for instance your doctor, you need to obtain a letter from them or something that basically they've signed off and said, yes, this person is etc., etc., and therefore are exempt. Now that needs to be official. You can't simply say at this point, I'm exempt. So, excuse me. So, and those exempt people will still need to be tested on a regular basis in order to retain their employment. I can't remember the specific time frame. I think it said that after about 3 or 4 days or so, you know, you probably need to get tested again. So I think it was something like that. But anyway, So you're going to have to undergo regular testing if you're exempt, and if you're not exempt, well, then it is mandatory and law that you have to have the double stick in order and be able to prove it, you know, with the app. You have to be able to prove it, and, you know, that's what you have to do to retain employment. Now, this is absolutely, at this point, and unequivocally wrong. Prove me wrong, you know, tell me I'm wrong. At what point is it okay to say that somebody cannot go to work and earn a living based on the status of something that is of free will? And they you know, fine, fair enough, it's free will, but we'll just make it a law so you can't feed your family, you can't pay your bills. So they're coming in through the back door. They can't tell you, you know, that you've got to have this thing, because they know full well that it's illegal to force you to do this. But they can't hold you down and stick this thing in your arm and pump that substance into you. They can't do that, because that goes against the laws of trespass against another person. They can't do this, okay? And I urge you to look into the law of trespass, you know, trespass against another human being. Look into that. It's to do with common law. And the more you look into the common law stuff with regards to legislation, in comparison to legislation, you will see that we're all living in a very kind of dualistic reality here, and they rely on us not educating ourselves in order to, you know, maintain their power over us. But I'm pretty sure that that would be, in part at least, one of the reasons why they can't just grab hold of you and stick it in you. He says. Excuse me. Toilet humour. But yeah, I am a man, of course. But anyway, so this is unequivocally wrong. They cannot tell you. I mean, they are, and they obviously can, because people are allowing it. But you see, what they're doing is they're hitting the industries that were hit hardest last time. If you can't see that this is all coming from a playbook, man. I mean, they know full well that these industries that were so badly stricken by the lockdowns last time, they know that these businesses are, at this point, threatened with another lockdown, probably willing to do anything to remain open. So they're going to say to their staff, you know, I don't want to go out of business. Everything I've ever worked for is sunk into this business, and, you know, I want it to remain open. I need to remain earning money after such a long time of not earning anything, especially now the furlough schemes have finished. They're going to say, well, you know, if you want a job, then get the old pinning thing, the old pin. I really can't say what it is, you know, I really can't say. I'm trying to say it in different ways as well, so it doesn't kind of come up as a, I don't know, you don't know what these algorithms are capable of these days, do you? So, I mean, if you think about it, why is, I mean, it says in this document that the stick in the arm prevents to a degree. I think that's what it says. Or does it say it lowers the chance? That's what I think it says. It lowers the chance of contracting said bloody thingamajig, and therefore lowers the chance of passing it on. It does not say that it stops you getting it, and it does not say that it stops you passing it on, because they can't say that, because they know full well that it doesn't. Trust me. The language that these people use, they will push language as far as they can push it. Which means if they haven't specifically said something, like it will stop this and it will stop that, if they haven't said that, that means they know it doesn't. Because they know they have to be held accountable to some degree, because they're trying to get away with the biggest the biggest blag ever. And they don't want anybody with any weapons or any tools to come back with anything, later on down the line. They're trying to keep this as vague as possible. Trust me, that's what all the confusion is probably about. So they can keep it as vague as possible, so they can slip through, here and there, and do whatever it is they please. So I would say this though, if it doesn't stop the contracting of something and the passing it on, why is it then okay for, say, this person to have a job and somebody who hasn't undertaken the medical procedure to not have a job? Why is that fair? Oh, simply because you followed the rules. Well, then is that not then coercion to simply fall in line, to simply do as you're told? Because if it doesn't really change the outcome, if it doesn't really change the status of health in a person, so these two people then are, health-wise, for all intent and purposes, the same. Yes, one may have a slightly less risk of contracting something, which I suppose that means that, if you start looking at percentages, they might be 30% less likely to catch it and pass it on. So yeah, they would be, I suppose, for all intent and purposes, more employable, given, the current status of the world with, all the hype surrounding this subject. But really, if you'd have to question, wouldn't you, if it doesn't unequivocally and without a doubt stop the spread, then why implement such a totalitarian, such a draconian measure at all? Because all of this is doing is it's only going to end up placing more pressure, more strain, more stress, and ultimately more hardship onto society. I mean, you'd have to ask, don't you? You've got to ask, you have to say, if these people were actually trying to destroy people's lives, would they be going about it the right way? Well, you'd probably say, well, yeah, they're going about it the right way. I mean, but, let's not lose focus here. All of this opinion-based YouTubing, I mean, I don't know, is it really interesting? I don't know, but I'm trying to keep it on the whole factual vibe here. So let's kind of delve back into the document. So it says that the workforce basically is going to need all of this stuff, and anybody that wants to attend these things will need to adhere to these guidelines. Now, like I said, it does allude to the fact that they hope it doesn't spread to other areas of, business, but they can't rule that out. Now, I mean, what we're looking at here is the ability of these people to tell the truth when they say there's strain here and there's strain there. For instance, when they're saying there's strain on the NHS and we're moving into autumn and winter, so therefore there's going to be a higher strain on the NHS. Well, guess what, people? There are always more hospitalizations. There are always more people being admitted to hospital for certain things such as, illnesses and stuff at this time of year, always. So it's normal. It's a normal thing that people get admitted to hospital for very, very similar things that have the exact same symptoms and stuff. So it all seems extremely convenient when you start looking at it like that, because of course the numbers are going to go up, man. Of course hospitalizations are going to go up. There's strain. If you look at the tables, the graphs on the internet, you can find them yourself. Go to any of these official websites that document this type of stuff. that basically document how many hospitalizations per year and at what time of year, and the you know, the fluctuations in that. And you will see that every single year there is a higher number of hospital admissions around the winter, of course. And we've even had years where there have been higher levels of hospitalization than when, you know, we've had them over the last couple of years or so. But yet there was no talk of, you know, the impending strain and the, you know, the enforcement of legislation, restrictive legislation, freedom restricting legislation. We'll get it right, because of it. Now, no, there wasn't, but they're doing it this time. And you see, you've got to look at how all of this plays out. You've got to look at the whole picture from the very start. Because at the very start, I mean, yeah, everybody got really scared. Everybody got really scared about this, because who wouldn't? You know, who wouldn't? It's only through time, as we move through, that you start to see the cracks, you know, the cracks in the story, you know. But the trouble is with that, yeah, you start seeing the cracks in the story as time goes on, but also what happens in parallel as time goes on. More and more people get fed up and go along with it because they want it to end. Because, I'll be honest, man, I'm pretty mentally strong, and it's stressful for me. You know, it's stressful for everybody. And, you know, but the truth of the matter is, some people aren't capable or as capable to deal with that stress. So therefore they give in and think, well, actually, you know what, bugger it. I'm giving up the fight. I'm throwing in the towel, and I'm going to say, you know what, give me the double stick, and that's it. That way, all of this stress, I don't need to worry about it. I don't need to worry about not being able to go out and live a life, because then I can just live my life. I get it, you know, but as time goes on, the more and more people do that, and what it does is it then narrows down the chances of any sort of resurgence. It kind of lessens the pushback, because there's less people to push back at this point, because there's less people that it's actually affecting. You know, what a shame. What an absolute shame. It really, really is. Now, I mean, the truth is, as I was saying, right, we were all scared to begin with. And as we move through it, we start to see the cracks. And the trouble with the people that have now decided to just go all in, well, that's what they've done, you see. That now they're in. They've chucked it in. They've said, yep, I'm in. And when, say, for instance, I don't necessarily gamble, but obviously I've had a little bit of a dabble here and there. I've put some money on, you know, not that I understand football at all, but I've made the odd football bet back in the day just to kind of be sociable. Guess what? Didn't win a penny. But if you're a gambling person, and say, for instance, you go all in, the last thing you want to do is lose. So once you're all in, you'd probably be willing to deny to the very last that you were actually losing. You know, because at that point, if you accept, oh shit, you know, I perhaps shouldn't have done that, and you show your hand and it's a weak hand, well then the pot is gone and you've lost everything. And you've got to look around the table and everybody's looking at you thinking, well, you were a bit silly there, weren't you? You shouldn't have gone all in on that. So, you know, it's a pride issue at this point as well. So, I get it, man. A lot of people have gone all in. They decided to go along with it. And that's a shame. It really, really is. But like I've just said, it creates this mentality in the people that forces them not to want to have to then look at the potential ramifications of perhaps they were wrong in doing so. So they're willing to just not look at it and to just, I suppose, willfully be ignorant and, I suppose, try and force the decision that they've made to be the right one. Because, you know, that's better than accepting that they didn't make the right decision. And in some regards, that is part of the problem. I mean, I've had a few arguments with people recently. I remember saying to one person that they had their head buried in the sand, and it didn't get a very good reaction. But you see, I stand by that claim. A lot of people are burying their heads in the sand because when you see things like this document coming out and the effect that that has on the world. Now, we're all inhabitants of planet Earth, you know, we all live here, which means whatever happens on planet Earth does affect all of us. Now, we can choose at this point, can't we? We can choose to acknowledge what is going on around us, and ultimately that means you're left with a choice. What do you want to do about it? Or, on the other hand, you can choose to climb into a little box, close the lid, and pretend that nothing else is going on in the world around you. And you can live your life within that little box in the hope that the storm will pass, and eventually when you come out of that little box there, everything's back to normal again. In other words, burying your fucking head in the sand. To say at this point, well, I'm just going to, you know, live my life and I'm just going to get on with it, and, you know, there's nothing I can do about it, you know, so I'm just going to go along with it and, you know, c'est la vie. To say that at this point is, in my opinion, and I'm probably going to annoy a few people with this statement, but in my opinion, that's extremely irresponsible. And, you know, call me judgmental, call me small-minded, but is that not what it is? Considering what is going on in the world and how what is going on in the world affects everybody. To say then, you know, that, well, you know, it doesn't matter, I'm just going to get on with my own life. Is that not hugely irresponsible? I understand. There are many, many people out there that believe it's the right thing to have people, you know, double stuck with this thing. I get it. People believe that's the way out. People trust that these scientists that are guiding the governments, apparently, even though in my opinion they're all in cahoots, you know, they're all corrupt and in cahoots, but we'll get to that. These people believe it's the right thing, and you know what, that's fine. Okay, no problem. But, you know, if people don't stand up for the rights of everybody, well, then nobody's got any rights. And we end up living in a fascist world, not just a fascist state, you know, or a fascist nation. We live in a fascist world then, and there is nowhere to escape to. There's nowhere to go. And this is globally orchestrated. Of course it is. If you can't see that by now, then, well, you know, you're probably either still asleep or you're looking in the wrong direction. But, you know, this is globally orchestrated. Of course it is. I mean, of course it is. It's obvious, isn't it? But, you know, these people think it's a good idea and they want to go along with it. And that's fine, you know. But ultimately, when what is being brought in on the back of this, you know, by people saying, well, no, you've got to have this, otherwise you are having no freedom. You can't go about your daily life unless you do this. Yes, you've gone along with it because you think it's the right idea. Good for you. But like I've said, what's being brought in on the back of that is fascism, which means if you don't fight for freedom, the freedom of everybody, if you don't stand up for the rights of everybody, not just your own right to choose to go along with it, but the rights for other people to choose not to, well, then you are also therefore complicit in the fascism, or I suppose the introduction of accepted fascism on a global scale. And that is my opinion, and I will not back down on that. And that is ultimately what is happening. You know, when you cut away all the shit, that's what's happening. People's rights are being taken away on the backs of something that is being given to you as something that's good for you, something that's beneficial to you, the person, the public. And if you allow that to happen knowingly, that other people are having their freedoms taken away for choosing against it, well, then you are complicit in the rights of others being abolished. Because the rights of the people to choose are very, very important. And that should be important to you. If that's not important to you, then first of all, that's a huge shame. But secondly, it's something that you really, really need to ask a question about. Like, why are you not bothered that somebody else's fucking rights are being taken away? In my opinion, you know, to ask why somebody is fighting for freedom is quite simply coming from a mind that is already enslaved. Because the perspective of a person that has to ask a question, like, why are you fighting for freedom, is quite clearly seeing things from a perspective that fighting for freedom is something that needs to be questioned in the first place. So therefore, you're already living in a fascist world. You know, you're already been indoctrinated by the fascism and think that that's the way forward. Because it's not even a question then. You know, it shouldn't even be a question. Why are you fighting for freedom? You know, why do... Surely you know why. Surely anybody would understand why somebody would stand up for freedom. Because the freedom to choose at this point is quite possibly the most important thing that we have ever had to fight for in our lives. Our sovereignty, our right to decide for ourselves what it is we have done to our bodies. I mean, what's next? Because if you project from the start of all of this to what's happened now, you know, what's happening now, things have come a long way. Things are starting to get very, very extreme. At first, it was just 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Don't you worry about it, people. Then it was 3.5 months. You're out of business. Then it was, oh, by the way, now we're going to start implementing measures, restrictive measures, such as mask wearing and all of this. And then we're going to tell you that you need to show proof of all of your bits and bobs in order to go and buy food. And you're going to have bloody, you know, Gestapo on every single door in every single shop, intimidating everybody, and propaganda everywhere, telling everybody to be a hero and wear a face covering, even though it's proven time and time again that these things are, you know, I'm not even going to say it. You know what I'm going to say though, right? Let's just say that, and this is a fact, you can look this up, let's just say that the viral spores, the molecules of a virus are smaller than pollen. And if you can still get the effects of hay fever through one of these things, well, then that's all you need to know, isn't it? You know, if you can chuck a basketball through a gap, well, then surely you can get a golf ball through it too, right? So, but you see, now we're reaching the point where they're telling us that we have to have this thing to work. And we've come a long way then, haven't we? From 2 weeks to flatten the curve. It's come an extremely long way, and things are very extreme. So what's next though? If you allow this, if you allow yourselves, you know, to be told that it's okay that you have to have a drug administered into your body in order to work, which you might think that's a good idea. You might think that that's a good idea and you might be okay with that, but it's not okay to have that forced on everybody, right? That's the point. It doesn't matter whether you think it's a good idea. It's whether or not everybody should be forced to do this. And it's not fair because choice, you know, because choice, man. So what's next though? Well, you know, if you want to go to work now, well, we've decided that you've got to have your little finger chopped off. I know that sounds crazy, and it is a little bit crazy. It's a bit fucking stupid. I shouldn't really say, you know, chop your little finger off to go to work, because that's probably not ever going to happen. It'll probably be more like something like I don't know, a microchip, or, you know, we're getting rid of all money and you have to be paid into a bank with cryptocurrency, so we can monitor what's being spent here and there and what you're spending it on. You know, look at the social credit system in in the Far East. I think it's in China. Go and look at that. It's disgusting. You know, people are restricted in their lives if the app decides they're not a decent person based on what it is they're doing. If they buy one more can of beer than perhaps they should have that week, then they're deemed an irresponsible person. Therefore, their travel rights are taken away. This is the truth. You know, this is the truth. And you think it won't happen here? I'm sorry, but these people desire ultimate power, and that is quite close to it, which means they're going to go for it if they can. It seems very obvious to me that this is all about public opinion, and it's all about being able to do what they want with the least possible resistance. And if they start bringing in restrictions this late in the game, well, they know full well that the resistance is going to be smaller than perhaps what it would have been at the start, because at this point more and more people have gone along with it and had that which will hinder you doing things. So ultimately resistance has been chipped away at. Let's just say, and I think this is probably going to be the final point here, let's just say, you know, that you look around. Is there really anything to be all that scared of? Are people really treating this like it's something that really needs to be afraid of? No, not really. I went to the bank today and a woman came off the machine, the paying in machine, and I went straight up to it. Now, nobody went in there in between and wiped it down. If this truly was something that was so severe that we're being threatened with, you've got to take this thing to go to work, which is an ultimate misuse of power. It goes against fucking so many moral codes, man. If we're being told that, then surely, if it's that severe to warrant that type of action, then surely, you know, people would be running around with hazmat suits on. The government wouldn't be meeting their friends in large groups and at parties and stuff without any restrictions. I know it's hard to accept that we've been made a fool of. I get it, man. But like, is there really something so severe? I mean, you're being told to do things that don't necessarily work, but what they do is facilitate the mindset that allows these people to crush you further and to bring in more restrictive policies. And that's really what's going on here. Because if you were to just look around, nobody's life is really being altered, really, other than doing these things. And the people that aren't doing them, for instance, there are still people wearing face coverings in the shops and driving around the streets in their car on their own wearing them and stuff. I get, you know, some people feel more secure doing that, you know. But you see, there are people, because obviously at this point there are no restrictions, but at this point, you know, there are people that don't do that and that haven't been doing that throughout. And those people are okay. We've got to remember here that the people that are getting tested are the people that are following all the restrictions. The people that are getting tested are the people that are getting the jab. So Really? Because the people that are saying, fuck it, I want to live a normal life, are the very same people that are going to say, well, fuck this, I'm not going to follow the fascist regime, so therefore I'm not going to take a bloody test. So the test numbers, the case numbers cannot be coming from those people. The case numbers can only be coming from the people that are following the rules to the letter. So therefore, if you're following the rules to the letter and you're still catching this thing and you're still getting cases, well, quite obviously the restrictions and stuff don't work. So at that point, you'd have to say, why are you still doing them? And why are you not only forcing everybody else and shaming people that don't? Well, I know why. It's due to ego, I guess. And the need not to want to be, I don't know, made a fool of and have to accept that. And I suppose it's the whole burying your head in the sand, I'll do this and hopefully things will go back to normal. But ultimately, why are you then allowing the onset of out and out fascism to be brought in on the back of those things and calling that virtuous? Because believe you me, man, it won't stop at, well, you know, events and venues are going to have their staff and the people that attend double stuck. It won't end there. Of course it's not going to end there. It didn't end at 2 weeks to flatten the curve, did it? No. It didn't end at wearing face coverings. No. It didn't end at social distancing. It didn't end at fucking 3 lockdowns. No, it didn't. It didn't end at hand sanitizer. Didn't end at fucking Liam Gallagher washing his hands singing a fucking song. No. It didn't fucking end when you were doing all of that, did it? It's still going on 2 years later down the fucking line. And we're still being told that at this point, stricter measures are being brought in. You would think that if this had anything to do with a completely like surprise event of a new, what do they call it, a novel virus, you would think that if this was completely took the world by surprise, and it was something that they completely knew absolutely nothing about, you'd think that if this had anything to do with your health, they would have implemented all of these things to begin with. They wouldn't wait till later on down the line when, oh, I know, we'll back everybody into a corner and grind everybody down to an absolute stub, take away so much that they're so scared of and then we'll give it them back, and then they're so scared of having it taken away again, then we'll start telling them that they've got to do this and that in order to keep hold of it, because we've got them good and scared. We've got them in the corner. Remember what it was like to have nothing? Well, you're going to go back there unless you get this. So then you've got to question what this is. Because if it's not about, if this doesn't stop necessarily you catching or spreading, then what is it about? Why then do these people feel so inclined to bully you into having it? Why do they feel so inclined to split the household through opinion? You know? Because that's what's happening all over the world. People are falling out. People are getting divorced. Friends don't want to be friends anymore. Because you've got a group of people that agree and a group of people that don't. And that separation weakens us. Why are they so hell-bent on doing this? In order to force people into doing something that they don't want to do. Because the thing is this. If you don't want to do something, well then you don't have to. You shouldn't be forced by anybody. Let's just say, for instance, fuck it, I don't need to give an analogy. You know, I don't need to give an example. Fuck it. You're not allowed. These people are the public servants. The government serve the public. They're civil servants, man. For crying out loud. They should do what we ask them to do. Which is why they say, oh yeah, send us what you want about this new legislation we're going to bring in. Send us your opinions. They're not going to fucking give a shit. But they've got to, you know, pay lip service. They've got to tell you that, oh yeah, you know, let them have their opinion, but we're not going to listen to it. So then that way they can say, oh well, you know, yeah, well, you know, you had your opportunity to have a say. Oh yeah. This is the thing. They have to play the game by the rules. They don't follow them. But the fact is, they are bullying mankind. In this document, it says they want to stick the world. What? I mean, come on, man. Like, come on, man. Since when? Since when has anything been severe enough to warrant that? Certainly not this. Certainly not this. So why? Why now? Why at this point? You know, in my opinion, you've got to look at all of the things that are starting to converge. All of the agendas that are starting to converge right now. All of the things that are being brought into place right now. All of the society shaping things. These new things that are being brought into place right now. And then, at that point, look at how those things could be implemented together in one little thing. Most of it's about control, man. Most of it is about control. And you've got to be able to see that by now, surely. Because all of these things, they do most likely go back to one or a very small pool of sources when it comes to, you know, the financial backing and who they benefit and how they will be implemented within society. I mean, let's just take, no one's spoken about 5G in a while, have they? I think we ought to bring it back because the people got pissed off about it, didn't they? The people did get pissed off about it. I mean, something happened that stopped public unity. You know, something happened that separated the public again. I'm not saying, or taking away from what happened, and I'm not saying that what happened shouldn't have happened. But nonetheless, it did separate society once again. You know, just at a point where the public was starting to come together and focus on one thing. Now, 5G. Let's just say, for instance, I mean, what is it? It's microwave technology, but it has to be, you know, the antennas have to be closer together because of the way that the waves work, you know, the frequencies work. They can't go very long distances. They're shortwave technologies. I think that's the best way to describe it. Now, let's just say, for instance, you know, what's that used for? Well, it's used for Wi-Fi, for technology. To interface with technology, isn't it? Make no mistake, cell towers are grids. It's a grid network. Of course it is. It has to be in order to be efficient, right? That's why you've got a cell tower here, a cell tower there, another one there, another one there, another one there, and it's in grids. It's in, you know, a pattern. So they can all basically create a grid in order for it to be efficient. I mean, there are some places, you know, you go out into the sticks, and by this point, I mean the actual, you know, the hillside, the countryside, and reception is very low. That's because there isn't one nearby. So in order to be efficient in built-up areas, they need to be of a certain distance apart. So no matter where you are, you're in, I suppose, an equidistant range of one of these things. But what, you know, how is society being driven right now? Well, it's being driven towards everybody being dependent on an app which is on their phone, which I suppose has to be updated by an official body, doesn't it? You know, when you have a test and you send that away, you know, there's a barcode on it and there's your name on it and stuff like that. And then that is linked in with the app on your phone, which then shows the status, right? Which means it's that status on your phone is updated by somewhere else, by another official governing body. They receive that test, they do what they need to do, they decide on whether it's positive or negative, they go on a computer system, they update the app and say, bang, Mr. Smith, you're negative. And then, hey presto, on your phone, your app says negative. And now you can walk into a shop and say, there you go, there's my negative papers. And that requires an interface, it requires a network. But if you want something that is of a greater capacity, a higher power, that has more power in order to implement its given service, then obviously you need a better grid for it to work off of, and that's what 5G is. It's a higher powered grid to work off of. I mean, society's been driven down that road, and as I was saying, what starts to converge? Well, you've got the app, and everybody being dependent on an app that is updated, regularly. You can't work unless you have a test regularly, so therefore it needs to be an efficient system. So therefore the network it's connected to needs to be an efficient system. So there's two things at least that start to converge. The implementation of the technology that is being, rolled out right now. And I know a lot of people think that if you talk about 5G, you're a nutcase. But the frequency that it runs off is extremely similar and can be adapted, apparently, as a fucking microwave weapon. Okay? It's a fucking truth. It's a fact. Go and look it up, man. I'm not a fucking nutcase. Not about, well, I mean, I am a little bit. Of course. Who isn't a nutcase? Especially right now. Fucking hell, if you're still 100% sane after this last 2 years, well, fucking hell. Hats off to you. Maybe you ought to be Prime Minister. But, right? But what I'm saying is, these two things overlap. Now, I'm sure if anybody gave a shit enough to want to actually look at the other things and see how perhaps they would overlap and how they could also be implemented at the same time, you would probably start to see a massive convergence, all these lines starting to cross over, all these paths starting to become one, all these threads starting to come together. I mean, you've got the eradication of personal independent travel with the influx of these bits of technology that are in vehicles nowadays. If you've got a sat-nav in your vehicle that is built in, well, you'll notice that on your little dashboard thing there, like it does on mine, it always tells you where you are. Now, I haven't turned that feature on and I can't turn it off. But it's always connected to the GPS. So it always knows where I am. So therefore, independent private travel has gone out the window. Then you're getting cars that have got technology that can drive themselves. This is the way things are going, man. The electronic AI world. There's taxis that can take you places now. These AI taxis that are having trouble at the minute, crashing into things. You're going to need a strong network to, interface with something like 5G in order to keep all of that running. Now, you look at things like transhumanism, subjects such as transhumanism. I mean, we're going down a rabbit hole here, but you look at subjects like transhumanism. Type it into Google, transhumanism, go ahead and do it. Look at that. Many, many people are into this. Many people that are in positions of power right now, people such as Bill Gates, people such as Elon Musk, and they're not hiding it. They want transhumanism. They've been quoted from interviews and stuff to say, that that's the way they want fucking society to go. Now, what are you going to need for that? Well, first of all, you've got to take baby steps to get people there. Like relying on technology, integrating human beings with technology, such as making it such a huge part of their life that then it becomes convenient to have it integrated into the body. If you need to show an app every single time you go in a building, if you need to pay for absolutely everything with an app on your phone, eventually people are going to say, I'm fed up of getting this bulky fucking piece of kit out of my pocket, typing a password in and showing somebody or scanning it on a piece of technology that's on the countertop. They'll eventually bring in, through the convenience of mankind, well, if you have this thing, attached under the skin or placed under the, the skin somewhere on your body, you have it integrated into you, well then that's connected therefore to your DNA. So we know it's you, so there's no need for passwords. So just place your hand over the sensor there, your fingerprints and all of that stuff, and then your bank account and everything is connected to it. Amazon's already got supermarkets where you don't have to fucking pay for anything physically anymore. You just walk in, stick stuff in your pockets and go out. And it instantly knows what it is you've taken and it credits your account. So these things are already happening slowly. And by convenience, people will just be rid of the mobile phone. Then what? What are the next stages? The people that are running things right now openly talk about wanting that to be the future. So when you look at what's happening right now, I know it's hard to accept that these people would dupe the world in such a way, in such a huge way, like scaring everybody about something that's tantamount to the common flu, in order to bring these things in. It's hard to accept that, isn't it? It's extremely difficult to say to yourself, holy shit, these people have lied to us in such a way. And obviously then you've made enemies through it all, and you don't want to have to admit that you were wrong and say sorry to people that you've perhaps, ostracized because they still believed in free will at the time. And then what does that bring about? Well, the ignorance, the willful ignorance again. What it does is it just brings this in. It allows these people, your ignorance allows these people to do what they want. And eventually down the line, what you've got, and like I've said, I know it's hard to comprehend. But how else could they get you to do it? If they say, they already know there was pushback for the RFID chips, they tried to make it look fashionable, didn't they, by getting people in business to have it put under their skin, and there was news articles making it sound like it was really convenient, and nobody wanted it. I know that we've all got a tracking device in our pockets with our smartphones. I know that our smartphone is just an oversized RFID chip and it monitors absolutely fucking everything you say and do. The microphone is always on, the camera is quite possibly always on, and everything you say and do is already being tracked and monitored. Okay, that is already the microchip. I get it, I'm not fucking stupid. I understand that we're already there. But we're not, are we? Because it's not integrated into your person yet. Society isn't ready for this to be a complete interwoven system of transhumanism, which ultimately gives the people with their fingers on the fucking keyboard at the other end that update the system, it doesn't quite give them enough power, does it, until we reach that point. And again, make no mistake, you can see over the last 2 years, this is all about power. It's all about control and crushing mankind into a position where they are in control and we've got no power. And the transhumanist agenda is on the fucking horizon. And what are you going to do? What are you going to do, man? When it's here, you won't be able to do anything about it then. Because absolutely every independent part of your life has been taken away at that point. So there's nothing to fight for. You don't remember what it was like to have cash in your pocket. You don't remember what it was like to, not have an app on the phone. You don't remember what it was like to not actually talk to people face to face, and to actually go and do physical shopping. Everything at this point will be monitored, tracked, delivered to your house. There'll be no seeing people because, by the way, there's been another surge of another variant and, we can't see our friends and family again. So, you know, nobody can come together and unite. You can't talk to people on the internet because it's all censored and monitored. And, you know, by the way, because you're now living in a social credit system, if you do talk to people, because the only way you can talk to people is on social media, if you do talk to people on social media that kind of sounds like you're trying to rally the troops, well, guess what? Your bank account's been shut down, sir, and you can't go and have your delivery of food this week. You know, that, you know, that's where we're headed. But as soon as, you know, that will crush humanity again into another, you know, a slightly finer powderous form. And you'll be backed into an even smaller corner then. And when people say, well, you know, well, now we're bringing in the microchip. Now we're bringing in the human microchip interface that has to be... Oh, by the way, in order to work, you need to have this. You know? In order to have food, in order to get medical treatment, you need to have this. Because that's what's being said right now. Unless you've had this, you can't go for medical treatment. Or at least, that's not the case right now, but they're saying that that's what it should be. Again, these Australians, man, these Australian politicians are leading the way for fascism right now. And that's what they're saying, you know, that's what they're saying. And at this point, you need to ask yourself whether or not you agree, man, like, is it right? Is it morally right to say that a person can't go and get medical treatment because they decide not to have something done, man? Is that humane? Like, is that humane? If you're okay with that, then you are the problem, and you need to. Then you should be the person that fucking gets shipped off somewhere and put in a fucking camp to live with other people that are like-minded to you, because the world don't need you. The world doesn't need people that believe it's okay to take away people's rights to medical treatment simply because they choose freedom, they choose free will. Talk about Holocaust healthcare. You know, this is a new apartheid. I mean, I'm laughing, but it's not a fucking laughing matter, is it? But I mean, Christ, what else can you do to keep the spirits up? This is another apartheid. Once you've got a two-tier society, which is what's happening, well, then you've got the haves and the have-nots, haven't you? You've got pretty much like what happened in South Africa. You know, the privileged and the underprivileged. Those that scratch around on the fucking dump sites looking for scraps of metal to go and weigh in so they can fucking... Or people chopping their kids' arms off so they can seem disabled, so they can fucking beg on the side of the streets. You know, in order to feed their family. You know, this is... It seems crazy to say that because we're living in the Western world and that doesn't happen here. Oh no, you know, we're libertarians. But isn't liberty now starting to sound like fascism too? You know, hasn't the far left, the ultra liberals, haven't they become fascists? I mean, let's talk about this. You know, this is another subject. Let's talk about the far left liberal fascists. I mean, at the minute, people are so liberal that they're becoming fascists. I mean, since when did that happen? I had somebody tell me the other day that the far right believe in freedom, which ultimately then becomes fascism. Oh, maybe it does. But it also means that the far left is quite clearly becoming fascism too. Because the far left, I mean, obviously, let's face it. I mean, let's not be stupid enough to think that this is about the left and the right here. Because, I mean, it's all the same fucking thing. But, you know, it's all controlled, isn't it? It's all controlled by the information. And since the information is controlled, and everything in this fucking godforsaken world is controlled, well, you know, again, it's just another separatist fucking tactic, isn't it, to keep people separate? But let's just look at the left for a minute, you know, since we're on the subject, because people still believe in the left and right, so we ought to discuss it in order to just highlight it, I suppose, to, you know, for the sake of doing nothing else. But now these far lefties, these far left individuals, libertarians, are of a mindset that, you know, you believe in what we believe, or you're not libertarian. You know, otherwise you're this. It's like there's this tribal mentality. It's our way or the highway. I mean, look at groups like fucking Antifa. You know, that's supposed to be a far left group, isn't it? That's all about liberty, and it's supposed to. Its name suggests it's anti-fascism. I mean, Fucking hell, have you seen Antifa going around bashing people's heads in, all dressed in black? Fucking hell. That's not fucking liberty at all. That's fascism. You know, these groups that are coming from the far left, for instance, like the, and again, I'm going to get some hate for this, but you look at the groups such as the LGBTQ movement. I'm all for gay rights. You know, Christ almighty, I was brought up in that world. You know, I'm extremely about liberty. I believe in free rights for all. Of course I do. That's what I'm talking about here. That's what this hour and 15-minute long videos have been about, is free rights to all, and the fucking fact that everybody's got the right to freedom, and trying to highlight the reasons why. So I'm certainly not anti-gay or anti, bisexual or anti-transgender. Of course I'm not. I fully believe that people ought to be able to live the life they want to live. It doesn't affect anybody else, really, does it, if people just want to live their life? What does affect people, though, is telling other people that they have to adhere to a certain set of fucking rules and guidelines in order for these people to be accepted or feel like they're being accepted. I'm sorry, but no. If you want acceptance, simply be yourself and other people will accept you or they won't. That's their fucking right. And it's your right to challenge it. But you can't make it law and say, well, this is what I demand to be fucking known as, and this is what I demand to be called, and we're going to make it a legal requirement for you to do that, otherwise you'll be convicted of a hate crime. What? Is that liberty? Is it fuck? What you're saying is, it's our way or the highway. I.e. fascism. So the far left is becoming fascist. And you've got to look at it like that. You can't say that everybody's got the right to do as they please, but so long as it falls in line with what I say that is, because then that's not fucking having the right, is it? And again, that's another echo of what's happening right now. By the way, you can have your freedom, but so long as it falls in line with the rules. It's like these Aussies at the minute, these Aussie politicians saying, well, in order to regain freedom, you have to have this. Well, is that not a paradox? Does the action not defy what it is you're trying to get from it? Because ultimately, there's nothing free. I said this in another video. There's nothing free about a freedom pass. Trust me. You think because, at the minute, everybody's got their freedom. Everybody can go around and go to the shops. They can go to the cinema. Masks are a choice. Oh, yeah. But by the way, we're going to take them away. We're going to take your freedom away unless you do this. Now you've got good and used to it again. Now you've just started to relax. By the way, we're gonna take it away from you unless you do this. Oh my God, everybody's in a panic again. Oh my God, everyone. No. Well, we can't lose this again. So, oh no, we'll do anything to remain free. And then all of a sudden, what do you get? Fascism. If somebody's telling you you've got to do something to be free, they don't want you to have any freedom. It's as simple as that. This video is really long now. It's an hour and 18 minutes long, and I've been prattling on, and I hope that you find it enjoyable. I really do. If you haven't, whatever, man. I suppose I'm trying to promote common sense here, because, and I said this is going to be the final point about 30 minutes ago, but common sense is quite simply using yourself to define what is actually going on, actually looking around and using your own brain, your own sense to decide what it is that's going on, because ultimately, if you do that, you will see that really we're not in a fucking crazy fucking panic bloody state. We're not, are we? And people aren't treating it as that. People aren't treating it as that. People are pretending and allowing themselves to believe that there's something still going on to regain a sense of virtuousness about what it is that they are going along with. Is that not the truth? Is that not what's happening? Okay, so this is Crack Call, man. I'm going to sign off here. I think that's a good point to sign off on. So I'm going to wish you all a very, very good evening. I'm going to go right now and take a breather. I'm going to need a drink because it's an hour and 20 minutes and my mouth is rather dry after all this talking. But I hope you've enjoyed the video, and you can guarantee that there will be more. And after this week of exclusion from YouTube, I will be uploading this. So if you're seeing this, I'm out of isolation. Love and peace to all things everywhere. It's Crackle signing off. Peace.